Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kings of Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your co-host Pablo, and here's my co-host.
Leo.
So today we are going to discuss draft strategies. To our listeners who have not done fantasy football at all in the past, it's never too early to start looking into draft strategies to help you prepare for your fantasy football drafts. So essentially, June 1st tomorrow. I think it's like 100 something days to the NFL kickoff. So again, never too early. And although there is plenty of draft strategies on this week's episode, we are going to discuss the zero RB draft strategy. Now, despite its name, it doesn't mean that you're not going to draft any running back. It just means that you are going to prioritize other positions such as wide receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends. Now, running back in fantasy football is one of the more volatile positions due to the fact that NFL running backs get hit a lot. A lot of NFL teams are not just having one running back, they tend to have several on the roster due to that fact. So, Leo, in your years of playing fantasy football, have you ever done a zero RB draft strategy?
Yeah, I've done it a couple times here and there. Throughout the years that I've done fantasy football, I've usually tend to be more of a running back, uh, heavier running back drafter. But these last few years, with the statistics that are coming out and most of the running backs getting injured, most tending to get more injured, more injury prone, that I've started to focus more on receivers in the earlier rounds. Each draft is different. You always try to get the values here and there, but when you go into a league, thinking strictly a, a zero RB, you want to try to get your like stock up on your stud receivers, uh, get awesome quality tight end, quarterbacks and stuff like that. You want to finish, round out your most of your team, and then you try to get some running backs that are more like PPR, more receiving type of running backs that they'll more than just with a few catches and like 50, 60 yards, they're already giving you 10 to 12 points right off the bat. So that's what you try to do. Last year, like if you drafted like the likes of like Jonathan Taylor or Austin Eckler, that they were both drafted in the first round, you left disappointed. Even Chubb, he was as consistent as they come. He got hurt and was out for the year. So you try to, you never know when injury's gonna strike, but you know you try to, you just you hope for the best. You draft and you hope for the best always.
Now, to piggyback off of that, so to our listeners, that is actually one of the pros of instituting the zero RB strategy is that you're going to focus on positions that don't get injured. Running backs are one of the positions that are injured at the highest rate. So you're going to focus on, like Leo said, your wide receivers, your tight ends, your quarterback. Although last year, an elite durable option like Christian McCaffrey, he does have multiple years with major mid-season injuries. So if you are heavy running backs focused like Leo has in the past, you're you're hoping and praying that your stud running backs do not get hurt because if they do get hurt, then your chances of being successful that particular year may be less. So again, the pros of zero RB is that you are going to wait for the later rounds to get a running back. So instead of drafting them early, like last year, they called him, I guess, the cheap man's Christian McCaffrey was the running back from the Buccaneers. The running back from the Buccaneers last year, he was drafted
Rashad White.
way later. Yeah, Rashad White was drafted way later last year, but again, they called him the poor man Christian McCaffrey because he was getting receptions, he was getting touchdowns, and he really much had no competition. So those are the pros of the zero RB. Now let's look at the cons. So the cons of the zero RB is that you will have running backs who are not elite. Um, so taking a look at this year's running backs, because of all of the different changes, there's pretty much everyone swapped teams. You have running backs who were not in their teams last year. So if you're not getting an elite running back, Leo, since you tend to be more running back focused, what would you say your percentages of being successful? I mean, it's normally two positions in your roster. So if you're having, let's say, even a backup, like last year, name that comes to mind, Damian Pierce was getting drafted in, round 9, 10, and he didn't have the year that he was supposed to have. So now that's essentially uh, a running back that you had to have on your roster all of next year.
Right. So yeah, you when you go zero RB, you what you try to do, you try to like stock up on since most of the running back there's a the running back are more like a running back by committee now with each team. There's only a, a handful of running backs that are bell cows that they get all the touches now. Basically, just about every team does a running back by committee. So you try to get some players that will that are still going to be involved in the game, especially in the receiving game. Let's say a player like maybe DeAndre Swift. That he's kind of like in a running back committee with Khalil Herbert and Rashawn Johnson. Even Raheem Mostert. Last year Raheem Mostert was for the Dolphins was one of the first running backs drafted, but now Devon Achane is going to be the main guy drafted early. So you know so now you can get Raheem Mostert like later in your drafts. A player like a one guy that I really love with the Steelers is Jaylen Warren. That he's very excellent in the receiving game. There's a rookie coming up with the Panthers. Um, his stock is probably going to start rising as the season progresses, as the draft gets closer. But Jonathan Brooks, he was a stud in college, but he's recovering from ACL. So if he was healthy, he'll probably be going probably in the first 4 or 5 rounds. But now that he's still recovering, there's a chance that you could probably get him maybe in the 5th or 6th round after for now. Like I said, as he gets closer, he'll probably start rising up. So yeah, there's different running backs you could take chances on later in the draft, like a Tajay Spears, even Austin Eckler. Now that he's he didn't have much of a great season last year. Now you can get him for later on, and if he happens to get back into that first class of running back that he was a couple years ago, you have a steal later, because he's definitely going to be the one that's going to be in the receiving game while Brian Robinson will be more of the early down back, stuff like that. You could just keep going down the list here, and you can keep finding plenty of values down the down the rankings there. Who do you like later in the drafts, a running back?
So in the zero RB, I think some names that may be there, but before we get into names, ideally in a zero RB strategy, I would say round 5 or 6 is when you're going to take your first running back. So I think the names that will be there will be like someone like James Conner, Pierce that I just mentioned. If White is there in that round 5 or 6, definitely think he has RB1 upside. Like you mentioned, DeAndre Swift. But if you are going zero RB, um, I would focus on getting some that have huge upside. So like some of the names, and I mean I think it might be too early, like pretty early for these. But again, if you're already doing a zero RB, I think you're probably already understanding that your position for RB is not going to be that good. Um, but I think the rookie that got hurt for the I think he got hurt for the Ravens last year, that you were really high on. I think he
Oh,
has a lot of
Keaton,
upside.
Keaton Mitchell.
Right. So like if you're again drafting, again with the zero RB strategy, is the players that have a ton of upside. So like last year, I hit a home run with Raheem Mostert. Obviously, like you said, A-Chain is going to be drafted high this year, but we all know that injuries happen. So if you're drafting, Raheem Mostert, if you're drafting some of these players that have huge upside, um, I think that is the point of the zero RB is that you're hoping to get some of these RB1s on your team. Um, so if you are going to implement this strategy, that means rounds 1 through 5, 1 through 4, you have to focus on these other positions, wide receiver, tight end, and even quarterback. I think especially from last year, the average draft position of quarterbacks, even seeing the experts when they did their mock draft in ESPN, I saw Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts going early third round. Let's take some time to kind of talk about that. With the zero RB strategy, would you do like um, wide receivers back to back, or would you try and grab one of these uh, top tight ends or a top quarterback with your second pick, assuming that you go wide receiver in the first round? What would you do?
I would probably go. I think obviously it depends like where you're drafting. So like I would try to get the receivers. I'll try to load up on the receivers because if you are gonna like I won't say like abandon drafting running backs, you need to pound the like those other positions so you can get an advantage over your opponents in that position. So that's why you wanna focus on those other positions. Try to get as quality as uh, the high the best high up most upside player you can at each draft spot. So I would try to focus on calling a couple receivers at the third round, depending who's there and where I'm drafting. Maybe get a tight end like a Sam Laporta. I've been able to get Sam Laporta on a couple drafts that I've done in the third round. A couple best balls. And I also got Travis Kelce is now being that he didn't have such a great year last year. You know, even though he's probably better than most everyone else, he's like going like in the third or fourth round now. So you could imagine getting like three stud receivers and getting Kelce in the fourth round. That'll be sick. Starting start right there. So just gotta see how the each draft is different, and you always gotta adjust with how the draft rolls out.
So Leo brings up a good point. So again, to our listeners who have not done fantasy football at all, until between now and when football starts is where you can do as many mock drafts as you can. Um, it's pretty interesting to do mock drafts if you want to do several and pick different picks. So you can choose, if you want to have the first overall pick, essentially 1 through 10 or 1 through 12, and just play around with it. Even if you don't have actual people to do the mock drafts with you, a lot of them have computers, so it'll essentially use statistics, and it'll say you just say, okay, I want to do the first overall pick, and when you do that pick, then the computer chooses the other one, and like Leo was saying, you can start seeing where players get drafted, which will help you prepare for your drafts. And like we're mentioning, when you're instituting the zero RB, you're hoping that your roster is loaded with position players that are elite. You're gonna focus on elite receiver. Hopefully, you're getting an elite quarterback, and then a tight end, like you said. Hopefully in the fourth round. But right now is when again you should start doing your mock drafts to help you prepare, because me and Leo can tell you that if you're just saying, on your personal draft board, like I want Justin Jefferson in the first round. If he's not available, then you're gonna have to pivot. So Leo, again, you've been doing this a year, so you kind of have like 3 names. Like, okay, if come be pick 5, these are the 3 names, that you choose from. Kind of how do you do your draft strategy?
Man, I'm gonna be really honest with you. When I go to a draft, I really go with no strategy. I always go with because each, like I was saying earlier, every draft is different. So whatever value falls to me, wherever I am, I'll get that player. To me, right now the first right now in ADP, the average ADP, the top 4, the top 5, or top 6 is Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and then we get to a couple of running backs there with Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson. So right there, 3 of the first if 3 of the first 7 picks are running backs, the other 4 are receivers. Then after that, then it's a whole another 4 receivers after that. We got Amon St. Brown, Amon Ra. You got AJ Brown, Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, and then you round out the first round with Jonathan Taylor. So that shows you there's only 4 running backs that are right now going in the first round, average ADP, with another 8 being receivers. So what's that telling you? It's telling you that most of the people are getting these receivers, because they tend to, especially that most leagues now are PPR. Who's gonna catch more receptions? The receivers. So that's why you try to focus on getting those receivers early. And if one running back happens to fall to you, you grab them. Out of the receivers that are here, those first 4 are they're just studs. They're like in a class by themselves. You get any one of those that fall to you up to the 5th, 6th round, 5th or 6th pick. You got to take one of those receivers, I think. Then from there, you can try to, After that, you might get one of those couple running backs there, and then from there you see what falls to you back in the 2nd round. So like I said, each draft is different. Where you draft also dictates what you're gonna do as well. Sometimes you might be in a draft that the other players, your other league managers want to get running backs, and so they want to get that stud running back that's going to get the majority of the carries. So those guys are going to go quick. Like those running backs I mentioned, Jonathan Taylor, then Saquon Barkley. Then after that, then it starts getting a little murky with the running backs. So then you're going to start seeing more receivers. So, you just gotta whatever you always gotta adapt throughout the draft because it could go any way, uh, but the way you want. Especially when you have a few people queued and then they get they get sniped. You get sniped right you know those first few those first those few picks right before you, and then you gotta they're like, damn, what the hell am I gonna do now? So that's why you always gotta be ready to and just while people are zigging, you gotta zag. Okay, you guys are gonna go all this, then I'm gonna go this way. So that's why you always gotta adapt.
Now let's take some time. So you mentioned a word that in the years that I have played, have never really used to justify my picks. So you said value. Now, for our listeners, average draft position or ADP. So Leo focuses on the best value at the pick that he's drafting. So, for example, um, if you do have the first overall pick, um, the value of that pick is you're going to be aiming for, or you're going to try and aim for the best position, best player in fantasy football. Obviously, it doesn't always work, but that's why we talk about average draft position. So what you have to be careful in is for, again, the listeners who are going to try fantasy football this very first year of playing, is you want to be careful with reaching for players. Is normally what experts caution you against. But in my opinion, depending on the reach that you're doing, um, can really help you. So the name that I'm gonna throw out there right now is, I think a lot of people are gonna be um, reaching on CJ Stroud this year because of the year that he had last year. So I would not be shocked if people reach for him. So for example, I would probably say that his average draft position, he's not the QB1. I don't think that people are going to be drafting him as overall QB1. But if you're drafting him in the second round, if you're even reaching for him in the first round, then those are the things that you want to be careful with. Again, as if it's your first time or if it's not even your first time, is the value, like Leo said. So if you, let's say, have the 10th overall pick, you shouldn't be reaching for, like to me, even a reach at 110 is Marvin Harrison. Even though he was a stud in college, he was the first wide receiver drafted this year. I think, again, that's a reach. So, Leo, to our listeners a little bit about, again, value, like they do in reaching for players.
Sure. So yeah, when you're going, when you're drafting, you try to. That's why it's good to mock, to get a feel where players are going. So when you try to do as many mocks as you can. Like Paulo was saying, try in the early part of like in the first, second pick. Try in the middle. Try at the end, 11 or 12. Wherever. Try different spots so that you can get a feel where players are going, and then that way you can see where the values are and when you're actually gonna do your real draft. So like if you see, like for me, to be honest with you, I don't really tend to draft quarterbacks early at all, unless like one of these like Jalen Hurts, or obviously if I'm in a super flex, that's another story. But if it's a one quarterback league, I'm gonna go down the list of quarterbacks that to me, I'll be happy getting. I could be the last person to draft a quarterback, and I'll be happy. We got Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, even Anthony Richardson. If he's healthy, he's gonna run. He's gonna go crazy. C.J. Stroud, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, I think, is gonna have a great year with Marvin Harrison there. You know what Dak, your boy Dak, does with all those receivers there. Jordan Love, he's got a whole bunch of brand new receivers, and then then it starts getting a little bit murky with Jaden Daniels. That to me, I would rank other players ahead of him. Even Caleb Williams, I'll put Caleb Williams ahead of Jaden Daniels. Justin Herbert, who was like going early last year. I know a lot of people are scared because his receivers are gone, but they do have some young guys that maybe he can produce. I think it's going to be more of a running game. But look who's ranked at 16th and 15th and 16th: Jared Goff and Tua Tagovailoa. Tua, who was going crazy last year with Tyreek Hill, is ranked 16th. So to me, you guys can draft all the quarterbacks. I'll wait. I'll be the last person to draft one, and I can come up with Tua. I can get like Tua and Jared, being the last couple guys receive drafting a quarterback, and I'm happy with that. All my other players are going to be studs because I'm going to have a whole bunch of receivers, stud receivers, tight end, and then a couple running backs here and there, and that's I'm ready to go, man. Let's go. So to me, like in a single quarterback, you could probably wait on quarterbacks. It's deep. Quarterback is really deep. Like I said, I just went down the list there of all those players that are available. And there's still more down the line. So I'm good waiting. So I'll probably gonna be stocking up on receivers, tight ends, and running backs, and then I'll get my quarterback at the end.
Now, that is very, very insightful because now you have me thinking like, man, that 1 through 15 was just wow, like any of those.
Crazy.
Especially for me, Tua and Jared Goff really, really popped for me because Jared Goff had an amazing year last year. Tua as well. You're hoping that the Dolphins receivers can stay healthy. Lions had a great year last year. So like Leonard was mentioning, do as many mock drafts as you can so you can see where these players are getting drafted because if in your mock drafts Joe Mixon is going in the 5th round but you draft him in the 3rd round, that can really hurt you because you're losing out on so many other players that you can draft at that position. Now, this is all, again, stats-based, computer-based, so you can do as many as you can to prepare yourself for your actual draft, but come draft day, like you're saying, you got to be able to pivot because I can tell you, like, for example, in one of my drafts last year, if an expert would have been watching that draft, they would have been really scratching their head because I think, if I remember correctly, 3 quarterbacks went in the 1st round, and I've never seen that before. So it changed the entire landscape of the draft. You had CeeDee Lamb went and picked 20, and that's not going to happen this year. This year he should be one of the receivers to go really early because last year he finished as wide receiver 1. So again, now's the time to kind of start thinking about your draft strategies because there's so many out there. We could probably have a whole month's worth of episodes just talking about draft strategies because it's also going to depend on the type of league that you have, which will be in our later episodes. Any other closing comments, Leo, about Zero RB or about mock draft, getting ready for the draft?
Yeah, if you are, like I said, if you are gonna do the 0 RB, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you see like Brees Hall or Bijan Robinson happen to like fall to you like at the end of the 1st round, okay, you got to take them there, right? So that's what I'm saying. Even though you go into like a mindset. Okay, this is what I want to do. Just be willing to adapt and notice where players fall to you. And if you don't happen to get no running backs early, then you just gotta make sure you draft up plenty of running backs later that are gonna be used in the receiving game, because most of the leagues now are PPR. That way you'll if they're getting like 4 to 5, 6, 7 receptions a game, then you're to get some points there with some like 40, 50 yards. That's already 11, like 12 points, easy. So that's why I would focus on players like that tend to be more utilized in the receiving game. That's what I would definitely do.
All right. So again, thank you to all our listeners for tuning in to this week's episode regarding draft strategies, specifically Zero RB. So if you have any questions, you can reach me on X, and that is going to be at Art Sharifer, ARCHREAPER. Reach me on X. We're on all the major platforms. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're also on YouTube podcasts, so again, all the major platforms. Leo, where can they reach you?
Yeah, if you have any questions, definitely you can reach me on X at Smooth1074. I'm also on TikTok at FFLeoG. If you like the show, rank and review the show. It'll help us get noticed, and hopefully you like it and pass spread the word. And we're always eager to help out anyone and talk some fantasy football.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Peace.